Hello everyone. Namaste. My name is Adityavardhan Kakrania. I will try not to keep my talk as long as my name is. I come from an entrepreneurial family. I am a self-taught cook and sometimes even act as a bathroom singer. Now, today when I was asked to talk about sustainability in entrepreneurship and business, I started thinking what people usually think of when they are asked to. It's words like recycling, plastic-free, clean energy, green environment, and many other such words and phrases. But when I started reflecting on my journey so far, it occurred to me that sustainability in entrepreneurship is more about the decisions we take and the choices we make from one period to another, from one generation to another. Now, all of our choices are really the same in their very nature and existence, constantly evolving and completely different at different stages of life. Here, I would like to refer to 4 such stories from my life across generations. The first story. Everything that you do today has a role to play tomorrow. Now, to understand my story, let me take you back to the Indian independence era. India just became independent in 1947. It was then that my great-grandfather stood on the famous Howrah Bridge of West Bengal with a burning fire to do something. Something as simple as both of his hands lifted half up in the air, like this, with a couple of vests hanging over them. The hands acted as the racks that you see in a mall or a store today, while the vests were the first product that my family ever sold. With no prior connections or any sort of business exposure, the boy had become a man at the age of 13. Feeding 8 kids was not an easy task either. However, as they say, after a lot of pure hustle, failures, grit, and determination, he managed to fixate on the fact that he wanted to stay in this garments line and rented out a small shop in the streets of Bada Bazaar. Over the next couple of years, he found a market fit in ready-made garments and bought the shop he once rented. 13 years of struggle finally started to look good for him and the entire family. He ended up creating East India's first wholesale ready-made garments company. What I learned about sustainability from his entrepreneurial episode has been accurately summarized in a dialogue from a movie called The Founder. Nothing in this world can take the place of good old persistence. Talent won't. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius won't. Unrecognized genius is practically a cliche. Education won't. Why? The world is full of educated fools. Persistence and determination alone are all powerful. The second story. Everything that you do today has a role to play tomorrow. Now, my great-grandfather passed away at an early age, leaving my grandfather behind with the shop and 5 unmarried kids to be wedded. As you can imagine, it must have been such a tough situation and a time for him to deal with. Even though he wanted to serve in the Indian Army, he eventually took over the shop. This came at a time when the sales were extremely low. He was toiling from one idea to the next as to figure out how to boost the sales. However, as they say, life always seems to surprise you when you least expect it to. A fruits market in Machua, which is a mile away from the shop, started commerce at 6:30 a.m. in the morning. People from all over West Bengal came there to make their ends meet. My grandfather also went there to buy fruits for his employees and for his household. It was on one of these meets that he discovered that majority of these buyers also sold garments in their stores in their respective villages and towns. Now, interestingly, the garments market started at 10 a.m. and he understood that he was missing out on this whole new class of customers who came early and went before the market even began. The very next day, after such realization, he started operating from 7 a.m. Sales went up by 70%. Many of these people still buy products from us. It's been over 45 years. My grandfather ended up creating a monopoly in the ready-made garments market in West Bengal over the next 2.5 decades and has been one of the key pillars behind many factory establishments all across India. What I learned about sustainability from his entrepreneurial episode is, all of us need to be really aware in every situation we are in, as we can pick up the most unique insight anywhere. Also, we must be willing to put in whatever it takes to get to where we want to. The third story. Everything that you do today has a role to play tomorrow. Now, my grandfather retired at an early age of 58. My father took over in the 90s. This happened at a time when people had been working in the company for more than a decade. And as every new generation comes in, my father struggled with his new methods of doing business and his new ideas. At the same time, India became globalized. Markets opened up, exports, imports started rising. Here, my father not only forecasted the growth of the garments market in terms of its volume, but also anticipated its indirect impact on real estate. It was on one of his visits to a small town called Srirampur in West Bengal that he saw many regional small chain store retailers cropped up in the same vicinity. And even though he knew that majority of them bought garments from him, he understood that there would soon come a time in the near future when many pan-India players would want to grab a piece of this booming retail industry given India's rising population, rising income, and lifestyle changes. Real estate had caught his eye. Over the next 2.5 decades, he tweaked his business model from supplying to the smaller retailers to becoming a major supplier of garments to the bigger chain stores, and also involving himself into property development. He transformed one single small shop in the streets of Bada Bazaar into a big business group having interests both in garments and real estate. What I learned about sustainability from his entrepreneurial episode is we always must try to foresee the future as we are the ones shaping it. Also, discontent in the short term sometimes can be a really great thing as it pushes you to think outside the box and look at things in a way that no one else can. The fourth story. Everything that you do today has a role to play tomorrow. Now, I was 15 when I started visiting my family firm. Initially, I felt as if I was being drawn to things that did not really matter. I had to get away from my vision of becoming the next MS Dhoni. I did this for 3 years, every day, until I started college. When I entered college, I felt a bit more groomed, probably because of my exposure. However, looking at my talented peers, I was really intimidated. They really humbled me down. Now, it was here that I made the first deal of my life. On the very first day, the parking guy came up to me and he quoted me a rate of 500 rupees per month. Coming from an entrepreneurial family, I was always taught to negotiate my way through any situation. And I did that. I told him that I would be willing to pay him 300 rupees a month, provided I got him 3 additional paying customers. He said, and I quote, "You just started college and you're talking big. I give you 1 week to do so. And if you're able to do so, you have yourself a deal." Within 5 days, I found him 3 additional paying customers. He was surprised, but really happy. What I learned about sustainability from this very small entrepreneurial episode of mine was always try to create a win-win with whoever you deal with in life. And always maintain the terms of your contract or your deal as it shows integrity on your end. It helps build trust that keeps compounding over time. Now, to all the students here, I'm sure you must be hoping to execute this same model when you enter your colleges. Please go ahead and do so. But I want you to be different with your execution style. There's never really a perfect time to do your first deal. You just have to have this immense amount of faith, this self-belief, this awareness that you're going to deliver and you're going to enjoy the process while doing so. Please go and make your first deal. Since a very young age, I always wanted to study in the US, and I made it come true by pursuing my master's there. Upon returning back to India, I started leading the digital initiatives at both my family companies. Fixing the broken supply chain of probably the 2 most traditional industries to exist even today, garments and real estate, it was extremely challenging. While on one hand, it was extremely daunting to keep up with the legacy, on the other, it was equally humbling and rewarding for me. Robert Frost said, and I quote, "The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep." Everyone, what I'm really telling you here is, had my great-grandfather not stood on the Howrah Bridge 75 years ago from today, I would not be standing in front of you today giving this TED Talk. This very basic principle applies to everything that you and I do in life. Life is a marathon, not a sprint. It is okay to pause, but it is not okay to stop. At every instance and at every chance, we must not settle for less. I want you to do that boring job. I want you to negotiate always. I want you to take that initiative. I want you to build your own door and build your own path because nobody is going to come and do it for you. I want you to possess the spirit of ingenious continuum where your belief in yourself remains unshaken. And lastly, I want you to be like this aging tree where your roots remain grounded, strong, yet over time, you continue to bear new fruits and flowers. Please remember, everything that you do today has a role to play tomorrow. Thank you so much, everyone.